What up, y'all? This is your boy Gerald. It is 24th of September, 2016. How is everybody doing? I always ask how you doing because, you know, I hope you're well. I hope that whatever is in your environment, you're able to master it, not to allow it to keep you enslaved, to have a certain perception of what's going on in your environment. So, at a minimum, from me to you, I send out that salutation. But today, and as for those who've been following me, I've been pretty active this week. And it's kind of, I haven't really taken stock on why the activity aspect, but I feel myself, just like many of you, there's a word that has to be put out there. Just like water falls into a vessel, like rainwater off a roof, and it starts to collect. Eventually, it's going to overflow. And it seems like every time that I feel that in my spirit, I submit. Because I know the intended heart, the intended mind will find this video, and it will serve as validation. It may show some commonality, or it may inspire, because it all comes from a place of love. And love is nothing but an extension of God's magnificence, because he created us. But I also know that society, in a town near you, in a city near you, in a state near you, the environment may not be so positive. So this morning, as I started my day, y'all, and let me throw this disclaimer out because, yes, I just chopped up me a bag of beans and I've got my coffee going in the background. And so I will be getting up momentarily to pour it in my cup because I got to have my morning coffee, y'all. Love me some coffee. And yes, I know the son said, well, Gerald, that's all you do. That's all you do. You just drink coffee and you smoke cigarettes. That's all you do. I do this for me, but I'm a firm believer each one teach one too. And this brings me to why I'm putting this video out today. So, the last couple of days I've been enjoying my time off, and I imagine where you are, you've had to deal with the change of season because we are officially in fall. And that is exactly what is going on socially. Because there's been a lot of things that have managed to take up our attention, consume our emotions, and distract us from who we are as an individuals. And I don't know about some, but I would be socially categorized as a Generation Xer. I'm concerned about the generation now, known as millennials. So we're talking 30-year difference. Some of you that were born in the late 80s and early 90s, you are embracing your adulthood. And one of the things that crossed my mind last night was, with everything that has been going on in 2016, It is nothing but an example of how time has not stopped. It's only progressed. And one of the things that crossed my mind this morning was, how is it in 2016 we are in a technological era that racism still has footing in our communities? How is it possible? And then sitting at this at a traffic light, God answered that. He said, it's very simple. See, no one's born to be a racist. That is a learned behavior. But see, even with God gets tired, because the devil work is never done. And the devil is the greatest opportunist ever. He is the illustration of the hater, because he already knows your story. He already knows your legacy. He knows everything about you. So he already has an agenda, because he already knows who you're destined to be. So while sitting at the stoplight, the answer came. You could not have racism without ignorance. You could not have ignorance without fear. You could not have fear without denial. And to have denial, you must find comfort in deflecting. And I thought about it. I said, this generation has an opportunity to eradicate racism once and for all. But to do that from not only a community standpoint, but an individual position, you got to first know who you are. But we've gotten comfortable, y'all, and you've got the deaf, dumb, and blind leading the masses like sheep to slaughter. Sure, they don't mind fattening you up, because the more you have girth, the more lethargic you become. Your wits about you are a little slower. Your awareness is a little dull. So therefore, to make up for that, impulse takes its position. Haven't you noticed a person who lacks something overcompensates? You know why they do that? To keep you from seeing what they lack. To prevent you from exposing what does not add up. So is it not evident or apparent to you that today's society has no clue, not only of their history, but of themselves? You see it everywhere you go. There are thousands and thousands of videos found on social media, even here. You have it spewed and sprayed on any comment block, just at a keystroke. But you know what you never hear? You never hear personal accountability. You never see vulnerability or the willingness to grow. See, a lot of people have forgot for every one finger you point, the other four are pointing right back at you, but yet it gets swept under the rug. Why isn't anyone asking why? Now, while you think on that, I'm going to go get my coffee and I'll be back momentarily. Hush. Have you figured it out yet? Have you? I'll tell you why. Because it's easier to fall in line than to be the exception. See, your greatest story you'll ever know is your life. Until you decide to invest it, guess what? You won't understand what is being presented, nor will you know your purpose. How about where you're going? How about the people that are trying to have access to your life? Because those things are made based off of your what? Perceptions. That's why it's always important to invest in you. How about that beautiful mind? How about, but see, we invest in that. We've gotten so socially conditioned to listen to them come and go. Nobody thinks about, well, you know what? That's somebody's son. That's somebody's daughter. That's somebody's mother. That's someone's father. We've gotten conditioned to accept bad behavior. So those who don't want to invest in you, guess what they do? They use it as a crutch, as well as to bolster up the expectation of your individuality. They say, what's the point in getting to know you because you fit a certain type? You're not a type. You're an experience. But if you don't know who you are, you're giving them carte blanche to tell your story. So as of lately, unless unfortunately you fell from Mars, came from under a rock, or unplugged from the matrix, referring to social media or media in general, you're very aware of what's been going on as of late. We've had 3 people lose their lives. 1 was unjustified, without a doubt. 1, there's still no clarity on the events. And lastly, 1 was where we had a young man lose his life that was part of that protest. And just as quick, someone said, it was the police that did that. But yet you have not heard anything from the media. The police deny it, as well as different outlets have said this was civilian on civilian casualty. So this kind of goes back to the sentiment that I had and have been echoing all year long. That was somebody's son that did not have to be there. Someone's father, possibly someone's brother, whose dreams will not be given to this world. My heart goes out to that young man's family. But I also know this: an opportunist doesn't need your help to expose themselves. That's why it's very important, y'all, to invest in you. Those are your dreams. That is your story. What you are experiencing is the brushstrokes that make that canvas a masterpiece. That's you. But see, we live in a world where they think that, hey, I don't have to take accountability. I don't have to take ownership. Life keeps going. Yeah, but what about the rest of the people that are not? That will be affected. That's still someone's family member that won't come home. we tend to go over that part for some reason. Do you not realize how priceless your life is? That's someone's family member not coming home. But I love this part, because one thing about an opportunist will never stick around to see things clearly. They'll never give you the facts either. Why? It goes against what they stand for. And this is what I'm talking about. I saw countless and countless statements. At first I saw it on Facebook, and then I watched it bleed through other social media outlets. You may know them as trolls. But guess what? These are some of the most broken people you will ever come to know. These people look just like you. These people are related to you. These are also people you may work with. See, these people lack one thing right off the top. They have no value for their lives, nor their contributions with it. They're the ones that are always looking for the shortcut, and they're the first one that always complains. I remember when there was a saying that everybody has a right to an opinion, but if you don't bring a solution, what's the point on yelling? Then I thought about it. How can you give an accurate depiction of who you are and what you stand for if you ain't investing in you? So let's fast forward a little bit. See, we have gotten so accustomed to celebrating bad behavior, but we never see the price of the behavior, the cause and the effect. But if you just stop and ground your feet, take notice to what is being presented. How about not say anything? Maybe it will be crystal clear. See, a divided house can't stand. If the foundation is not strong, guess what? It's going to come down. But we make the support. We make the beams that hold up the walls. What we do opens the doors and shoulders us through times of pain. Does it surprise you? Through a metaphor position, there's nothing that has not been said already. Honor thy temple. From a literal sense, we could say that's your body. But what if it's bigger than that? How about your environment? How can you honor your body if the environment that you're in is not honoring you? See, those opportunists know that. Those trolls know that. They figured that out a long time ago. They figured out how to pluck your nerves, play with your emotions. But you know one thing that they couldn't master? They didn't know how to master speaking their truth. Because if we were truthful, then we could finally have the courage to change. How about sit down? Sit down at that table to have the dialogue so that eventually the conversation that needed to be had could be embraced. Mm-mm. How long you think you're going to go through this society? How long you think the society is going to last if you feel that the only way you can navigate through it is you got a strong arm? How long you think you're going to last? Because you can't beat everybody. You ever thought about that? Did you realize how precious your mortality is? You didn't have to wake up this morning. And then when you step out into that world, guess what? You ain't guaranteed that you're going to see the other side of that door. But we don't think that, do we? We have a disposition that the world owes us. How wrong you are. A lot of times I go on social media and I look at the comments that are shared, and I could tell right off the bat, without even looking at the profile, how much this person has grown. I could tell just by how they write. And I'm not talking about grammatical errors. I'm talking about the dialect of what is being conveyed. And you know what I've seen? I've seen a lot of, I think it was Tupac that coined the phrase. No, he didn't. He got that from James Dean. Rebel with a cause. PE used it, rebel with a pause. But guess what? You got to be comfortable in your own skin before you think about standing on your own 2 feet. But if you don't understand what makes you and what you're about, you're not even going to realize that the foundation that you're standing on has to support what you're trying to stand on. And that's the problem in the millennials environment, because a lot of millennials, it's called a spade. You have no life skills. You don't have no life skills, so therefore you don't value your life. You look at society through rose-colored glasses, and you think that, well, if I can't deal with it, I can easily hit the reset button, or there's a cheat code, and it'll serve its purpose. But see, life don't work that way, y'all. Nor does your challenges. See, every challenge that you will face is evolutionary and progressive. It is your responsibility to go within, to have the fortitude. How about the vulnerability to love yourself? But see, once again, the things that we need to talk about as a society, as a community, we don't talk about that. Why is that? Why? Because society honors the position, I'd rather be feared than loved. Fear can't grow. Love transforms. You think you were supposed to play the martyr? That's why you're here? But I'll do you one better. If you don't like what 2016 has shown you. Imagine that baby that is being born now will have to live in when they're 30. Imagine that, because everything is progressive until you learn it. That's why we have history. But you have people who say, well, you know, Gerald, history is meant not to be repeated, but it's supposed to be respected. It's supposed to be learned from. Why? Because that's where you gain your insight from. And by the time you master it, it becomes your wisdom. But if you don't love yourself, someone can have a big old billboard with whatever you need to know in front of you and you won't get it. Hold that thought, y'all. Thank you for your patience. So, been seeing a lot of media attention or media distraction lately with all these shootings. I can't negate the injustice that has taken place, but I can't condone some of the choices that were made too. Now, I'm saying that because you can't have it both ways. You can't. I'll explain. Too many people are losing their lives in one demographic. But I also have to look at it objectively when there are some that unfortunately the result was mortality taken, but it could have been prevented if there was not a crime. We don't talk about that. Why? And I know why. And there's a reason why people don't talk about it, because nobody wants to see their son or daughter on the 6 o'clock news unjustly. But there's a whole lot of parents that have children that you know deep down inside you failed as parents. You set the playing field that could not be won. But nobody talks about that. Why is that? But then I thought about it a little deeper. Look at the trend. On one hand, You have the emasculating process of grown men and the defeminization of the young. And then you have another part of defeminization with the young women too. I would seriously highly recommend that you check what you eat, because you are what you eat. And what you eat has an effect on how you think. But then I thought about it. What about those that isn't the reality? Those that only see it on the news, or those who benefit? Because trust, there are many people that look just like you and me to say, see, that's why I don't mess with them. So that goes back to you, my young kings, my young queens. Because see, you're going to inherit this world when we're gone. Do you realize you have an opportunity to end division, to end racism? You can do that the moment you decide to claim your life back. See, nobody gets props for being a wannabe. We used to use that term heavy in the late 80s and 90s. We would call you a wannabe in a minute. Oh, she walks like her, she talks like her, she wears her dress like her, she even wears her hair like her. But what I find so ironic, that is nothing but progressive mental behavior that has evolved. And what has occurred? You have people that want to be you, but deep down inside, they resent you. Prime example, how many times you ever had that phone call from somebody? I'm like, oh, who's this? Sound like Marsha Brady on the phone. And then you meet him. Don't look like Marsha Brady at all. Because that is nothing but social conditioning. Remember, cause and effect is progressive until you learn to appreciate who you are. See, that's the problem with our society, y'all. You have a lot of people that deep down inside are clueless on who they are. They do not celebrate their strengths nor invest in their weaknesses to make them strengths. They condone and eventually are conditioned. You know what happens to conditioned people? They stop growing. They stop progressing. They stop understanding because they become stagnant. So this goes back, let's go back a couple generations. I'm all for social awareness, but not by way of ransoming my individuality. But see, you're quick to hear people say, well, you're a sellout. But see, how can you be a sellout if you know who you are? See, these are the same people that will turn around and say that they will ride or die. You can't find them. They got a whole lot to say, and they put forth no effort, but they do a whole lot of this. Don't you realize, y'all, there are certain people you're meant to love and learn from afar. That's just how it is. And some of y'all are knowing that, some of y'all learning that now because you remember that last snafu that took place that almost sucked you into it, but you had enough cognizance about yourself to say, nah, I ain't got nothing to do with this. And you sidestepped that. Well, why can't you be sidestepping all the other stuff? Your life is not a living example of what deflection is about. It's not. Kings, real men don't do that, y'all. We don't. We take full responsibility, not only for what comes out of our mouth, but what is shown with our hands. See, cowards don't. And cowards cause a lot of casualties. You don't believe me? Just look at your cemetery. There are plenty of people that shouldn't be there. There's plenty of stories that should have been told. There are plenty of dreams that should have been embraced. And there was a whole lot of happiness never shared. But guess what? They're opportunities. They're nowhere near. They're never around when you want to ask the questions. How about to have that heart to heart? No, they can't do it because that's not what's in them, y'all. I keep trying to tell you the devil's work is not done. He don't mind sacrificing you. Maybe the reason he's coming at you is to prevent you from birthing them. You ever thought about that? But that Jezebel spirit knows that. She loves it, Queen. When you look in the mirror and you transform and you don't even recognize who you are. How about them pictures? You don't even know who you are. Why? Because you're trying to conform in the values that was told to you by the broken. See, misery loves company. That's their whole agenda, to get you to sit down at that broken table, to eat that bowl of soup served cold, called helplessness. Don't you realize you are supposed to be someone's mother, someone's wife, someone's grandmother, or better. You will be the matriarch of your family tree. Doesn't matter how tall the tree grows and how long the roots go deep if the arms of the branches cannot sustain the weight. That is your legacy. But let's talk about Charlotte, shall we? Why is it every time you turn on the news nowadays? I saw this before, and I thought that they would catch it, but I know intentional programming when I see it. But when you look at the footage of the protesting in Charlotte on the first day, it was a small group, but the majority of the people in the group were not minorities. The second day, the group expanded. And then, unfortunately, a young man lost his life. But what I find very ironic is if you have a platform that is yelling out injustice, why are you picking and choosing the injustice? I saw somebody wrote today in one of the social media sites about the young man that lost his life. And everybody wants to pick up the momentum or the torch that Nat Turner held up. But they don't understand why. Most millennials don't know their middle name, let alone their history. How about your family history? But yet, you take fear and you put yourself in harm's way. But this is what got me feeling a little twisted. Parents, where are your kids at? Why aren't you stepping in to protect your babies from themselves? Why ain't nobody? See, if you're gonna have a platform, you gotta lay it all out. But most people want to pick and choose. You want to talk about injustice? We want to yell about racism. What about the racism in our own race? That's perpetuated through social media. How about that? How about the exploitation that goes on for social currency? Why aren't we protesting about that? We'd rather watch someone get their brains bashed out than celebrate someone's accolades for academia. If you're not part of the solution, you are part of the problem. And I blame my parents for that too. Because it's the responsibility of the parents through their experience to make sure the seeds that are planted are raised upright. We don't talk about that. We want to put price tags on our children's mortality because we don't have the integrity to get up and do it ourselves. We want to put emotional sanctions on the child's perceptions than the education that they will stand upon. We don't talk about that. It's okay that Sarah is the latest runaway, than to make sure that she's in a room safe, lock and key. We don't talk about that. But it's okay for little Shay Shay to degrade herself for the whole world. Then one person come check on Shay Shay and say, hey, what's going on? What's going on, baby girl? Why are you doing this? Why are you acting out? That's what real men do. That's what real women do. But see, I understand that because I think it was between 85 to 86, we got away from the neighbor looking out for our children. But yet we want to turn around and throw it out there like it's a frisbee. It takes a village to raise a child. So if it takes a village to raise a child, why isn't the village out there protecting our young? Let's shift it. 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 You could easily say, why bite the hand that feeds you? But yet, on the same breath, you destroy and redirect your revenue. Don't y'all understand that where you live, the economics, every time you pick up a brick, every time you throw a rock, you just turned around and said, hey, I'm going to go ahead and make some economic growth over there. We don't think about that now, do we? We don't think about when we burn it to the ground. You just more or less gave that owner a free, you just gave them money through their premiums to expand. Nobody thinks about that. But here's the thing that really just blows my mind. And I don't understand why nobody hasn't caught this. You got a lot of instigators, y'all, that don't give a damn about you. And those same instigators don't live in your community. And they playing you like a puppet. And you see it all over the college campuses out there. You have a whole lot of people got a whole lot to say, but not one time are they having a solution with that dialogue either. And the truth of the matter is, they're broken. They're escaping. They go to college to find themselves thinking that it will erase where they came from. But don't you realize you can't run from you? You still little Anime's son. You still Shakim's daughter. You think being hugged up with Sarah, she's going to be there? Sarah's just as broken as you. And collectively, you have a pact through social and sexual bond, which is nothing but joint deflection. And the moment that you decide to go within, your secrets, the company you keep, she's going to turn that right back on you. You realize how much bloodshed has been spilled over false love? Just think about that for a second. Think about it. Realize how much blood has been shed over lies. You realize how much blood has been shed because of fear. Hmm? The roles have flipped. You have young boys that are emotional, but yet do not have the tools to communicate because they don't have the guidance from a man. So they act like lost boys in communion with themselves because they find safety and solitude in numbers. I don't have to tell you that. Just look on here. And guess what? They celebrate that. You never hear anyone say, hey, this ain't it. This ain't the way. You hear people that are in these protests like tear it up, but you never hear one person saying, you're better than that. Is it worth your dreams? Nope. They don't care. But they find unity in discourse. And what has happened? We had a young man lose his life that should not have. I wonder if he should have. I wonder if that was his whole intentions to be there. Or was that one of those situations where, like so many, well, instead of running from the fire, you run into the inferno. But as soon as something happens, we're quickly going to point the finger at, oh, they did it. I'm pretty sure there will be some footage because we live in a technological world. Everything's in surveillance. It'll come out. It'll come out. And the person that pulled the trigger will be caught. But right now, they're sweating bullets. They're paranoid right now because they have to deal with the fact that they took this young man's life. Yes, he was 20 years old. Let me tell you something, y'all. Until you hit the age of 35, you don't know you yet. You don't have a clue on who you are. You barely know how to wipe your butt. But yet society screams, if you're 18, you're a grown adult. Okay. Some of y'all can't even make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And that's what's scary. But I can easily flip this too, because the millennial generation can eradicate what separates us if you're willing to invest in yourself. First, how can you make a contribution to society if you ain't contributed to you yet? How can you? You shouldn't feel like every day you're walking out the door and you're thinking, will I make it home? Or every time you see a patrol officer, a patrol car go by, am I going to end up losing my life? Remember, we pay their salaries by way of our tax dollars. But Steve Harvey, for those who listen to this show, he spoke on that very in depth today. You have some that have used that badge as a new means of disguise to influence or oppress by way of force to make up their insecurities. And yeah, They look just like us too. There are people that should never, ever earn the right to serve and protect. Mm-mm. But some of us know that. No, listen, you guys are feeling this on a social civilian pop, but for those who served in the military, y'all already felt this. This ain't nothing new. We used to call it the old boys club. And the more rank they had, the more loose their lips and actions were. But nobody can make you do what you don't want to do, y'all. Remember that. You got to mature your sense of self first before you can even embrace your journey. How about understand the events in your environment? How about the people you keep company with? I know I'm talking to somebody. You just came out of something and you're thinking, thank goodness. But you feel battered though, because part of you is saying, if I only knew that you would do me like that, I would have never said hello. You know why that played out? Because you refused to see your worth. You refuse to embrace your discernment. Every conversation doesn't require you to have your mouth in it. And some dialogues only require you to be aware. Now, let me go 15 degrees off topic, but it'll have a whole lot about. As I said before, everything's progressive, y'all. And it's going to continue that way until we do the work individually. Until you get you right, your environment's not going to be right. Stop running to the fire and acknowledge that there's something burning. But I've noticed this too. You got a lot of rebels without a cause in our society. And they're doing things because they're trying to find their social identity. They have no clue who they are and they don't care who they hurt. And that's why you have so many people ending up with the tape around them, ending up catching a beat down, ending up getting exploited. Why? You run into the fire instead of taking note. But you know what I've noticed? I saw this comment today on social media. I'm going to wrap this up. They say 50% of the comments placed on social media are done by pseudo profiles. Some are done by computer generated. That means the computer is putting this out. And some don't have the integrity to speak it from themselves. So they put on this false facade. You may think you be talking to this pretty little girl. It might be a grown-ass man thousands of miles away. You don't even know. Or it could be. But then when that chance meeting occurs, they don't know what you're talking about. I ain't got to explain that. You hear about that all the time. Our young babies out here fighting over words on a screen. Knuckling up because of an opinion. Is that opinion putting money in your pocket? I mean, stuff like that. But you see this more than ever now. You see a lot of non-minorities got a whole lot to say. But here's the thing about that. They don't live the experience. So they can only understand just from a certain perspective too. Some do, some don't. How about little Billy that lives in, yeah, you see what I'm saying? He can't, he act like Bud Bundy. He want to be down so bad. Listen, if you wasn't so precious, you wouldn't have the melanin that you do. You don't believe me? Why do you think they make copper tone? See them out there all the time. Because you are God's jewel. You're chosen. But unless you learn to love yourself, how can you protect somebody from themselves if they don't know who they are? Hmm? Hmm? But God did say it right. What's done in the dark will come to the light. And vengeance is his. And guess what? God does get tired. But he also said this. You don't have because you haven't asked. There's only one way that you can have clarity. It must come from your heart. And I know some people are going to be like, that's weak, brother. Yeah, but guess what? I don't have that drum. Am I empathetic? Yes. But I put God first in everything I do. I fear him more than I fear him more than I fear man. Because I know at the end of the day, God's got me. And we're all here to do his work with or without your consent. Why do you think people suffer? Pride, ego, deflection, denial. All equal what? Death. They do. But you seeing little Taylor and little Shauna in the mix, of course they're going to do that. They're going to find enjoyment in that. This manipulation. They don't have to live it either. That's why you also see this. Some of the most debauchery you'll ever see on this planet is done while people are in college. But the effects of those choices play out the rest of their lives. Because sooner or later, you got to come back home, y'all. You can't run from your life. So do you know who you are? Because if you did, why aren't you protecting your dreams? You can't protect your dreams if you don't know who you are. You don't know. You might be being brainwashed to follow a certain ideology that only ends up in destruction. You ever thought about that? And I'll drop this one too. You think that those in the top 20% are not watching? They're making money off of these protests. They're making a whole lot of money off of it. But at whose expense? Your son? Your daughter? Because look at it this way. One hand feeds the other. Your son goes down there, thinking he gonna kick up dust, he gets locked up. Guess what? Now he needs a lawyer. Well, guess what? That person that never gave a damn about none of this, you just put money in their pocket. We don't talk about that. Why? I think part of it is because part of society is afraid of the truth. and trying so hard to hold on to a lie. But a lie is exactly what it is. And see, right now the devil think he winning because that Jezebel spirit has convinced you, my queens, to betray yourself. Did you forget you were chosen female because you have the gift of nurturement? Life will come through you by him. So you can't have a child without him. But if he don't have a relationship with God first, he'll never have a relationship with you. Does it make you feel, does it not validate why you feel a certain kind of way when it comes to your communication? How about your relationships? You're not in a relationship if you feel alone. So at a minimum, you must have dialogue. How can two people walk in the same direction if they're going two different ways? It's definitely not yoked. So therefore, you're not accomplishing anything. But you know what? You have people that are wearing $3,000 suits, making power moves and decisions that will affect you. And guess what? You think there's no chess moves being played? You think people are not taking stock? Because I'm going to tell you what, you got some people that believe you are taking up too much air. You are eating up food that they should have. And they want you gone. And they look just like you. We keep continuing the generational curse because that's all it is, y'all. This is nothing but a repetitive cycle because of fears and failures that our elders could not master. Could not. And you see the same lesson played out through the generations. You should not have a family full of women. We see it every day, though. Like, damn. Every one of these women in this room is beautiful in her own right, but she has no one to claim her. What is the point of looking at a valley of wildflowers if the thorns cut you up before you can smell the first fragrance? It's not for the protection of the flower or the petal. It's the protection of the root. So what's going on, people? What is it going to take? Because I'm going to tell you what. You got people playing with your emotions, socially, economically, and you don't see it. Don't get caught up on this. Invest in that. They can't take that. Because a lot of people want to say, well, it's them. No, it's you. Because while you're basing at them, guess what? They're still making money. They're taking your money from your opportunity. And they're exploiting it. But here's something y'all need to peep game on. Did y'all realize was it day 2 of the protest? What did they do? They broke out that National Guard. I don't care how many people you got. When you play the military game, ain't no winners in that. Ain't no winners in that at all. But as long as we keep divided, If you can't even have a conversation in your own damn house, how can you have a dialogue outside it? Hmm? Hmm? Does it surprise you? Our family history is splintered. You get a reminder every day. It's called Maury Povich. Because they're making money off of what you don't know. It starts here, y'all. It's governed here. It makes that. And it's overseen by your spirit. So while you sitting over there trying to puff up your chest like you Billy Badass, just know this. If your brawn doesn't match your wit, you are easily manipulated. That's why it's very important to be very careful about the company you keep. Your stick man may be your betrayer. Your girlfriend may be your oppressor. You ever thought about that? Because misery loves company. What is it going to take, y'all? What is it going to take? Because meanwhile, while we're sitting here on the sidelines, they're living their lives. They go on to become your boss. How about that? And while we're worried about what little Big Red, who he's dating, why don't you worry about what you doing? Your life is not made for TV. It's made to be experienced. So why don't you invest in it? Be the exception to the rule, y'all. You don't have it because you ain't spoke it. You haven't spoke it because you don't know how to protect your truth. How about ground your feet? Meanwhile, there's somebody that you don't know waiting to make a buck off of you. You ever thought about that? Thought about it. Little Shay Shay ain't got to walk the block no more. All she got to do is click on this screen. But guess what? If it falls on this screen, it's there forever. You ever thought about that? That's not your story. But it will be until you decide to love yourself. God's praying for you. You know I am. I see your worth. And for that, it helps me discern mine. How you going to turn around and put up a sign and say, well, I'm down for BLM when BLM don't give a damn about you? They don't. But they damn sure stood for the LGBT community now, didn't they? Oh, they got that. They got that set. But how about that little black girl that's sitting on the corner hasn't ate anything? How about that little runaway boy that's sitting out there under that overpass and he has to turn tricks because he needs to find a place to stay? What about that? Why aren't we talking about that, y'all? How many of us have to be a statistic